Hello. With my latest portfolio piece getting lots of strong reactions, I wanted to do a video talking about the processes involved. I'll be talking about the inspiration for the piece, how reference was used, combining learning opportunities and anything else relevant along the way. So if that all sounds like a bit of you and you like the image on your screen, let's get into it. I found this piece on Instagram and it really caught my eye. I was disappointed to find out it was AI, but decided to see if I could recreate something similar. I decided to do an environment study as a practice and learning opportunity. I hadn't done an environment piece in Blender since switching back from 3ds Max, and I hadn't looked at volumetrics, displacement, landscapes, water, foliage or geometry nodes at all, so this would be a good opportunity to do something with all of those. I started off with the clouds, which I was surprised to find extremely easy to do. I found a tutorial that used Blender's Ocean modifier, that I also didn't know it had, to make a container for the volumetrics. Flipped upside down, the crests of the waves, backlit made a pretty good set of storm clouds. Environment pieces focus heavily on composition, so I set up a camera, a ground, a sphere, blocked out a basic castle, and began positioning the clouds. It was proving hard to get a similar angle as the reference for the sky, so I did what all sensible people would do and cheat. I angled the sky and tapered it with a simple deform modifier until it looked roughly correct through the camera. In the reference, the castle looks like it disappears into the background, foliage, bracken, bushes and trees, most of it in complete silhouette. I decided the best approach here would be to use cards. I found some grass textures online and imported them as image planes with the image to planes add-on you can enable. Using the alpha channel to show only the grass shapes, I then cut up the image plane and placed them around the scene. For the trees, Blender comes with an add-on you can enable called Sapling Tree Gen. I created a tree I felt fit the scene and then instanced it around the scene with different rotation. When you use an instance or linked duplicate, you don't double your poly count, so this helps keep the scene nice and light. I went with real geometry for the trees because I wanted them to catch and react to light. With heavy scenes like this, another thing you can do is under the Objects View properties, change it to Bounding Box to avoid slowing down your viewport. The ground texture was made in the shader editor with a noise texture set up so as to make the roughness in some areas go so reflective that it looked like water. This took much fine tuning and it would have been simpler to just model water separately, but it did the job. For the graves and rocks, I set up a geometry node system to scatter them on the ground. Because I was faking the water with the texture, I decided to make a second ground sitting just below the real one that I could shape roughly where I wanted the objects to be scattered. I believe this can also be done with vertex groups and you paint the areas you want to be affected, but I wanted a quick, simple solution, so I went with the first option. With the geometry nodes, as well as scattering the objects, I could give them random rotation on the Z-axis and a little on the X to make some lean over. This kept their placement looking natural and organic. By this stage I was still using the crappy castle block out I'd started with, so I decided to finally model the structure. I had in mind that I wanted to include some sort of port cutlass that I'd backlight with an orange glow. I also wanted orange glows from the windows. The castle model was done with it very much in mind that it was in the background and largely in shadow. It got a basic texture treatment, just enough to be convincing at a distance. The planety looking thing behind the castle was made with procedural texturing. Originally it had a dark side and an atmosphere, but I later removed these to rebalance the colours of the whole scene to be more in fitting with the reference. I experimented with some volumetrics to add fog to the front of the scene. I didn't want to obscure too much, but was happy with how it looked weaving between the foliage. Probably the most complex part of the scene was the lighting. With the planet emitting light and the various volumetrics and simulated water reflections, I kept additional lighting to a minimum, mainly just the red on the horizon for the clouds and the orange window glows from the castle. I used the compositor to denoise and give the scene some fog glare. Then a little further post-processing was done in Photoshop. I made the foreground darker and added some fireflies. Further colour grading could be done for a variety of looks, but ended up removing those. While I normally prefer working in a precise way, the chaos of slapping together a landscape is quite fun and a good way of snapping yourself out of any artistic block you might be getting through. Thank you for watching.